Well, good afternoon, everyone. I know we're still allowing some folks to enter in today's virtual press conference. But we're going to go ahead and get this press conference started. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Steve Messam, and I will be the moderator today for our virtual press conference. I am one of the original founders of the Stop the Burn, Go Green Harvesting campaign here in Belle Glade, Florida, where we have many local residents who have come together to actually talk about some of the issues that we have with the current practice of sugarcane burning and the alternative of green harvesting, which can be a win-win situation for both the environment and our economic economy here in the Glades. Well, today we have some great information that's going to be shared as it relates to the air quality that we have in the Glades. We're going to have a couple of people speaking today, which will be myself. We also have another one of our leaders, Mr. Colin Walks, who is actually a former mayor of the city of Pahokee, and he's also a great advocate for the Stop the Burn, Go Green harvesting campaign. But today, many of you guys have actually come to hear about a report today, and that's where we're going to have Dr. Jessica McCarty, who is actually the associate professor and director of the Geospatial Analysis Center at the University of Miami of Ohio, where she's going to share a report that she has done to give us some information on the air quality. She's going to actually have a better chance to introduce herself in her presentation. So at this time, I'm going to throw it over to Dr. Jessica McCarty to share her findings in her report.
Thank you, Steve. And it's wonderful to be here with you and Colin today. So let us begin. And I want to thank everyone for coming here today to just show the results of this analysis of an assessment of the current air quality monitoring during sugarcane harvesting in the Everglades agricultural area. So a little bit about me. I've actually been working in agricultural burning within the US since 2004, and that lower right photo is me as a master's student assisting with and monitoring sugarcane burns in Louisiana. That's in Iberia Parish. I have developed NASA-funded methods to map, monitor, and estimate agricultural burning emissions, including a field campaign in the EAA. These methods are currently used by the EPA for the National Emissions Inventory and by the Greenhouse Gas Inventory. I have an agricultural background. In fact, I come from a farming family in Eastern Kentucky. And if this were a social media get together and we listed our first 5 jobs, all of my first 5 jobs are working in tobacco, either for my family or for other local farmers. So I do understand how hard it is to work in agriculture and how hard the work is. And though I am a faculty member at Miami University, this work was completed as an external service contract as work for hire for Sierra Club, and the report will be shared as after this press conference and later today. It is open source based on open source data, as is all of my research publications. You can find me on Google Scholar on ResearchGate as well. So let's get into it. Why do we care about sugarcane burning? Well, the health impacts are, of course, very important. In particular, we know that certain atmospheric concentrations of particulate matter, or PM 2.5, as well as polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAHs, increase the risk of lung, skin, bladder cancer, as well as renal dysfunction. Recent research has shown that sugarcane burning emissions contributes to DNA damage of agricultural workers or local communities impacted by smoke. Epidemiological studies show that smoke impacts from sugarcane burning actually increase respiratory and hypertension hospital admissions, with pneumonia being the most common illness. And that people who suffer from asthma or COPD are much more likely to have an attack during increased PM 2.5 episodes like from smoke. So let's think about what the local to regional smoke impacts are for the Everglades agricultural area. Well, most of this research and this report was really contextualized around thinking about this one sensor in Belle Glade. And so if you aren't familiar with it, here it is on the ground with pictures provided by the Sierra Club, as well as from space, provided from Google Earth Pro. This one sensor is supposed to monitor an entire area, and we will see why that's not exactly the right methodological as well as management approach to this. If we look at smoke data, this is open source smoke concentrations that's produced by the NOAA Hazard Mapping System. This is free open source data that's produced on every 15, 30-minute, and 25-minute averages from geospatial and geostationary satellite data that tasks every 15 minutes. So this is high temporal resolution. These are hand-drawn smoke plumes by trained analysts working at a NOAA lab. Here we have 3 examples from the 2019-2020 harvest period, where we can see with the MET1 sensor in Belglade highlighted with a pinpoint that oftentimes it is actually coincident with smoke plumes. But there are missing daily values, and some of these missing daily values actually correspond with coincident smoke plumes from this every 15-minute measurement of smoke in the atmosphere from NOAA. In fact, of the 25 missing dates in the 2019-2020 report, 1 out of every 3 experienced a coincident smoke event with the Belglade sensor. So we are actually missing some very important particulate matter and air quality emissions data just from that one sensor. Sugarcane burning can also cause regional haze. Well, regional haze is when there is enough smoke that you're actually creating a smoke event in a large area. So here is an example from October 20th of 2019. And this regional haze event has created even medium, or what is considered moderately thick smoke from the geostationary satellite data. If we zoom in, you will see that only 1 plume is directly over the MET1 sensor in Belglade, even though the entire region is actually shrouded in smoke. So this is a problem if you're trying to characterize what the air quality is for a region by having a single sensor. So moving forward, how do we improve the access of the community and the people who live in the EAA to this type of information? Well, there's a clear need for a regional air quality monitoring network. Satellite data can't tell you everything. So relying on a single site as well to report impacts of smoke does not reflect reality. We can use a combination of satellite data, but we also know that regulatory grade sensors in the communities of the EAA, including but not limited to Pahokee, Wellington, Royal Palm Beach, and others, would benefit from giving us a more comprehensive analysis. And combining that with satellite data would actually let us know where the smoke is, what the emissions are, and what the impact on the air quality is. Communities downwind of sugarcane field burning have similar exposure rates to PM 2.5, PM10, and PAH concentrations. So that means they have similar exposure risks that we talked about at the beginning. And 3 to 5 PM 2.5 regulatory grade sensors are normally deployed by the US Forest Service or by metropolitan governments for large wildfire events or to look at air pollution in urban areas. So just having a single sensor in this region and comparing it to an urban sensor in Palm Beach is not the best approach methodologically, and it does not follow the one that is used by federal and state and local agencies. Fire-free zones are a way to think about a solution. So South Florida is a region with a highly dispersive atmosphere. So that means that the episodic sugarcane fires from October to May will impact a large area. It also means that the plumes tend to impact small areas, but of course, as we've seen, sometimes that can be regional haze events. So an aggressive buffer of a fire-free zone around communities within and of course contiguous to the EAA would, combined with the current fire permitting system done by the Florida Forest Service, could reduce the impact of smoke. So we tested this out in the report. If we use current satellite observations from the VIIRS satellite data operated by NOAA and provided by NASA, we can see that a 3-mile buffer around, fire-free zone buffer around many of the EAA communities would actually reduce a lot of the exposure. In fact, extending to a 10-mile buffer would reduce sources of emissions and potential for smoke impacts by almost 60%. Other harmful pollutants within this air, it's not just particulate matter, include pollutants like benzene and formaldehyde. which are cancer-causing sepsises linked to leukemia, and as well as cancers of the nose and throat. The 2017 US EPA National Emissions Inventory, or NEI, recorded about 148 tons of benzene in the EAA, of which 10 came from Glades County and 22 came from Hendry County, with the majority coming from Palm Beach County. But this is just from ag field burning, not from industrial sources. And then approximately 223 tons of formaldehyde from agricultural burning occurred in this 4-county area, most likely from sugarcane, as other crop types are less likely to be managed with fire. So what are the steps or the opportunities for the region? Well, as I think our esteemed community members here today will discuss further, thinking of fire-free or climate or fire-smart agriculture could include things like green harvesting, but also the use of those sugarcane leaves for things like biofuels, textile production, which of course is already a part of the EAA community, and even thinking into the future as we think about the need to control some single-use plastic, the production of bioplastics. Countries like Brazil, who struggle to maintain any kind of management with and against wildland fires, have shifted away from sugarcane burning. So it is clear that within Florida, there is, of course, the innovation and the opportunity to do just that. And with that, I'd like to stop my presentation and turn it back over to Steve.
Thank you, Dr. McCarty. That was such great information. Before we take commentary from Mr. Colin Walks, I just wanted to let the media and journalists know that we will be taking questions after we get an opportunity for some of the local leaders to give a response to the findings of this report, as well as myself. If you have a question for Dr. McCarty, please either raise your hand during the time of Q&A, or you can submit your questions via the chat box. Again, that is for our media and our journalists, folks who have joined us today. So at this time, thank you again, Jessica, for such great information. I'm going to give Mr. Colin Walks an opportunity to give a response to what you have just heard from Dr. McCarty.
All right, thank you so very much, Mr. Messam. Thank you so very much, Dr. McCarty, for bringing forward that great information, factual information, and not propaganda information to the panel here today. Thank you all, the panelists that are on today. It's a great honor to be here with you all today to talk about an issue that's crippling our community economically due to the lack of utilization of innovation, as well as health-wise in our community. We have a Black and Brown community, a marginalized community for the most part, who struggle with a lot of health issues when it comes to sugarcane burning, asthma and COPD being those two prevalent within the community. Also, before I go any further, as a local resident and as a former elected official, there's always this question in the air as to if we are here against our industry. I want it to be known clearly that we are not against our industry here locally. What we are against is sugarcane burning and the negative effects that it has, impact that it has on our community, on our varying communities, South Bay, Belgrade, Pahokee, and Canal Point, as well as Clewiston. Also, I would like to give a lot of attention to this matter, and I'm happy that everyone is here, to our elected officials, to our residents, and to our business community to join hands with us. When we have an industry who is not thinking about the welfare of the people who are in close proximity to their operations, you have to lean on citizens who are astute and educated enough on the issue. We have to lean on elected officials and we also have to lean on local business partners to help us to regulate our industry. And once again, it's a regulation of smoke. It's not a regulation of jobs. Matter of fact, green harvesting, one of the solutions that we're going to talk about, helps to increase the economy here if our local industry would partake in the practice of green harvesting, not only for themselves, but it would help to create entrepreneurial opportunities for other individuals and other industry to come in and help bring our community from being one of the poorest communities in the state of Florida. So I'm just here as an accountability factor. I want to ensure that that it be known that we are not against our industry. This is an accountability call upon our industry to be better neighbors with us. When we're doing things that we deem are right, and then we learn that what we're doing is not the best way to do things, we change, we adapt, and we take advantage of innovation. So that's what we're asking our industry to do, is to take advantage of this opportunity to become innovative and to help us economically, as well as physically with our physical health, as well as aesthetically with our community, the way that the black snow, as we refer to it here in our community, does a lot of damage to homes, to cars, to just a lot of personal property. So we're asking our industry to be better neighbors to the residents of the Glades area, to our local businesses, and to our children. Our children are the future. We do not want to cut them short by taking their breath away. We want to make sure that they can breathe clean air and have a great quality of life here in the Glades community. We want our community to grow. If people are not interested in our area because of the practices of our agricultural industry, they don't want to purchase homes in the area. So we're being hurt in many ways based on the practices of our industry. Once again, industry, we love you. We love what you're doing as far as providing jobs for our community, but we have to be a better neighbor to the people that take care of you. We show up every day from dusk till dawn to put in the work. Now it's up to you now, those that can make the decisions to help us to have a better quality of life. Ag Commissioner Nikki Freed, you came to our community, you spoke to us, and you said that any point in time we need you, you are here for us. And now we're calling upon you to stand up for us, the citizens in the Glades community. Thank you once again, Moderator Messam, for giving me the opportunity.
No problem. Thank you for your feedback. And just quickly, just my thoughts. I'm going to just start with just the report itself. Some of the things that kind of jumped off the screen to me was the fact that there's only one monitoring station in Belglade, and it's only for that location. It's not really capturing everything that's happening within the whole region. So to really stake a claim that our air quality is better than our folks over on the East Coast based on one monitoring station that isn't to the full, I guess, regulatory specifications that the EPA requires, that's kind of like, something like when I was in the pharmaceutical sales industry, every time we talk about our products and all the good things, the FDA required us to do our side effects disclaimer. You always hear it on the commercials, or you see the fine print as far as the negative effects. And I think that should be a disclaimer when the industry is telling us that our air is clean based on one machine that's only collecting information in one specific location that's not up to a certain specification that the EPA requires. So that was kind of one of the things. The other thing was just a recommendation that if we even had a 3-mile buffer around our communities, that it will reduce significantly the effects of the ash, the effects of the smokes that our resident is having. And the fact that Mr. Walks mentioned Nikki Freed, when she came out with her first regulations around, sugarcane burning, she actually afforded a 2-acre buffer around the wildlands. And yet we have schools, homes, churches that are literally right next to sugarcane fields, and we don't get the similar type of buffer. But again, all of that just kind of goes back to even more of why I think our Stop the Burn, Go Green Harvesting campaign was started 5 years ago. We just didn't want to come and complain about the black snow. We wanted to bring an alternative, which was the green harvesting. And to even think that back in 2008, US Sugar actually had entered into an agreement with the ethanol company based out of Illinois that they were going to bring that technology, create 100 million gallon factory in Clewiston to use the same trash that they are burning, green harvest it, collect it, and convert it into biofuel, which would have been a win-win for the environment, for the industry, as well as for workers and our economy. And that's all that we have been talking about. And I think that if we can get to that place where we can get to green harvesting, not only will the environment be better off, but to Mr. Walk's standpoint, we're going to get better jobs, whether if it's the industry who create that biofuel, bioplastic, or whatever other industry, or if we allow other industries to come and set up shop, buy the trash from the industry and use it to make those products. Either way, that's more jobs, that's being a better neighbor, because now the environment is actually benefiting. And that's just kind of, I think, the big driver in this whole thing is we want the industry to be better neighbors. We're not anti-agriculture. We are pro-people, and people makes the agriculture industry go, and it makes all of the other industries go. And I'm just thankful that you were able to share this information with us, just so we can understand truly what's going on. And at this time, I would like to open it up again to our journalists and our media folks who are on this Zoom call. If you do have a question, please either raise your hand with the that function on Zoom, or put the question in the chat box, and then we will be able to ask Dr. McCarty to share any of her thoughts. Just looking, we do have one question here. It's from a Katrina Elskin. It says, how many air quality stations are in Palm Beach County total? I'm not sure if you know how many stations are in Palm Beach County total.
I did look at OpenAQ before I came here today. If you're not aware, there is a global open air quality network called openaq.org, and they list all air quality sensors, including ones that you can get cheaply off the shelf, so like purple air sensors and things like that. We really focused on regulatory grade sensors. So in West Palm Beach, there's one regulatory grade sensor that was compared with the Belgrade regulatory grade sensor. Other studies by Florida International University, as well as Florida State University, have used non-regulatory grade sensors when comparing emissions, and in all instances have found traces of sugarcane burning in these urban sensors. So I really look at the regulatory only because of my work with the EPA versus the non-regulatory one. And I'm aware of the one that is regulatory grade in West Palm Beach to compare to this sensor in Belgrade that's not regulatory grade. In fact, it's a science grade sensor that was given a permit by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection to essentially serve as regulatory like. But if you were to enter it into, say, proceedings with the EPA for National Ambient Air Quality Standard exceedances, it would not count as a regulatory grade sensor. I guess I'll stop there. So because I want to focus on, you know, how do we get the best data for the EAA community, and that means really elevating the status of the sensors and away from what we have now, which is more commercial or open source technology.
Okay. Another question I have for you is, to what extent do the pesticides and herbicides used in the sugarcane contribute to the toxic pollution produced when sugarcane is burned?
Okay, so this is a really complex issue. I am a co-investigator of a large team that was funded by NOAA and NASA in the Fire XAQ campaign. That was during the summer and fall and early fall of 2019, and we flew a DC-8 through smoke plumes of wildfires, as well as agricultural burning and rangeland burning in the central and southern US. One of the things that we found were much higher rates of fertilizer, pesticides, and herbicides in the smoke than we thought we were going to find. And this is kind of how atmospheric chemistry in relationship to fire science is advancing. We're finding that any kind of chemical application that's applied to vegetation there is some residue of that, sometimes within the plant itself, oftentimes remaining in the top layers of the soils that are then burned. during these either fire seasons or harvest practices, and that is present in the smoke. For Florida, we were not able to fly sugarcane harvesting. We did fly 2 prescribed burns with the Tall Timbers Research Station. So I do have colleagues at Tall Timbers. And we found some trace chemistry from pollutant sources that was surprising. And that's just as our science is getting better and our instrumentation is getting better, we're able to find more of these pollutants in the smoke. A study came out 2 weeks ago that showed that wildfire smoke and even grassland smoke contains much more ammonia than we previously thought. And this shows how science advances. Just a few decades ago, there was an assumption that ammonia was minor or maybe even absent from some biomass burning smoke. And now we're finding that's just simply not the case, that there is a lot more of these byproducts of fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides, and even plastics that are used in, say, irrigation or laser leveling of the field, things like that. Okay. So good question. Yeah.
No problem. I see that we have a question from Mr. Colin Walks. You're recognized at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Messam. I appreciate that question that was asked. I'm going to apply it from a local perspective, being here on ground. I'm going to talk about the application of herbicides and pesticides to the plants. Within our community, those varying chemicals are usually sprayed onto the plants by airplanes. And being a local resident, I can share stories when we were kids growing up. We would be covered in this stuff, because we're outside playing, enjoying our local community. And, you would have the crop dusters is what we would call them, would come by and spray the varying chemicals. The chemicals would come either in a pellet form or it can come in a mist form. So, of course, there's no real control of those chemicals because you're trying to spray the fields. But of course, you are spraying individuals' homes as they're out sitting by their pool, on their back porches, on their front porches, whatever the case may be. And you can just imagine you're sitting there with a cup of lemonade or iced tea, and all of a sudden, herbicides, pesticides are covering you as an individual. So I know we're being affected by it. Based on the application process. I know we're being affected by the burning process. So once again, these things just need to be regulated so we can help to decrease any health effects that the local residents are experiencing currently.
And to build on what Colin said, Mr. Walk said, one of the things that is often recommended on the West Coast after any prescribed burning or wildfire event is that you wear an N95 mask if you are exposed to the smoke or if you're doing any kind of ash cleanup. And I was a little surprised to find that kind of guidance wasn't available in Florida, or I'm not sure which state agency would monitor that, perhaps the Forest Service or the DEP. But we do know that having these types of protective masks, just as we have worn them through the COVID-19 pandemic, this is really helpful as well in limiting your exposure to pollutants during and after smoke events, and particularly in places where you're cleaning up ash, like is common in the EAA with the black snow.
Yeah, you just said something that made me think about, even when the CDC guidelines came out, right when COVID-19 hit, they actually included all prescribed burnings, which also included sugarcane burning. They made a recommendation to not burn during those times because folks who were affected with COVID-19 was actually more at risk, when those, and then obviously folks start talking to the CDC, and then next thing you know, it went away in the CDC guidelines. And then you also said the N95 mask, out on the West Coast. It makes me think about not all masks are created equal, right? So my question for you is, what kind of air quality monitoring is needed for the EAA community? Because obviously we have one in Belglade that's not completely up to the specifications. So what type of air quality monitoring station should we have out here?
I mean, I'm a satellite expert, and I will tell you, you can't solve everything with satellites. So, my hope is that the next time I engage with the EAA community, that what I see is a regional regulatory grade air quality network. That means putting in, EPA grade, Florida DEP monitored, as well as maintained sensors that would operate on an hourly, daily basis, so that a lot of these questions, or what is sometimes said is hearsay, just simply go away, because then the communities have proof. And just like I showed with the satellite images of smoke, if a regional regional smoke event were to happen again, a regional regulatory grade air quality network would be able to document that, as provide communities with information. If these sensors were co-located with schools, they could provide, not just information on whether or not it's safe to let the children go outside on the playground, but it would also it would allow it to develop, curriculum around public health and atmospheric science, and just advance, a lot of the science education. And I will say too that, I am sensitive to regulation around agriculture. I mean, I grew up on a tobacco farm in Kentucky that doesn't really exist anymore because of the tobacco settlement in 2000. And it had a real impact on my family. My parents had to delay retirement because we were no longer really able to grow and sell tobacco after that. And I understand that. And so I have empathy for the growers. But the people who live, the rural communities, and I myself am from a rural place, deserve to live in a place where their public health is maintained too. And that means clean air. So it does seem like there are opportunities here to be good neighbors and good stewards, as well as just good innovation moving forward. So I would love to see that regional regulatory grade air quality network, potentially, provided by the US EPA in tandem with the DEP. And then as well, monitoring by the Florida Forest Service has a wonderful, really, quite accurate online mapping system that shows you where fires have been permitted and where smoke is likely to go. But they don't monitor the black snow. And that would be very helpful for these communities. It's not just showing you where the smoke is likely to be, but where the smoke is actually documented or has occurred, so that it's not, this game of telephone trying to get them to prove that it's here, but rather it's there, and they have that capacity. Florida is a fire adapted system. There are lots of good trained fire scientists, managed burners, prescribed burners, and fire practitioners. The capacity and the expertise is within the state.
Yeah, thanks for that. We have a couple of questions coming in from our media and journalists. Nano Riley asks, has the new factory for green harvest trash begun to operate in any useful capacity? Actually, there's no current factory for green harvesting out in the Glades. Actually, our campaign has been advocating and pushing. We've actually had outside companies reach out to our campaign in hopes to see if we can help them with getting traction with the industry. There's actually one company called Verde Vision, who's actually trying to come to the Glades and set up a factory where they would take the trash and actually create some biodiesel type fuel for the shipping, for the ships, for the maritime ships who was trying to bring down their greenhouse emissions with this type of fuel. So one of the things you kind of mentioned, with the EPA and with the whole green deal that the current administration is trying to push, there are so many opportunities where the industry can actually get subsidies and other types of grants and funding that they can easily, whether it's the type of equipment that needs to be built to actually separate the leaves from the cane. When I'm thinking about what the green harvest industry can bring to the Glades is what the auto industry has brought to the Midwest. I was living in Detroit for about 6 years working there. And it wasn't just about the big three, where you have Chrysler, Ford, and GM. It was the hundreds of thousands of small businesses that were suppliers to those three big companies that provided the parts, that provided all the different things that helped that car be produced. When I think of green harvesting, that's exactly what we can have in the Glades, whether it's the industry doing it themselves like they did with Telus, which is using the bagasse to make paper plates and to make paper cups and those types of things. Why not create another type of industry that can take the trash that is currently being burned and create fuels or other type of mulch and types of things? So to answer your question again, Nano, we currently don't have any green harvesting factories in place right now. Hopefully that will, companies like Verde Vision, or even if it's US Sugar or the other companies, if they decide to do another spinoff like a Tullis and create their own, that's what we're definitely advocating for. Katrina has another question, and she asks, did the study compare the acreage and smoke from wildfires and other controlled burns to the acreage burned for cane?
Yes, so within the EPA NEI, and that's a really great distinction to bring up, we are able to determine which pollutants are coming from sugarcane burning and then which are coming from controlled fires outside. And one does need to be careful, but there are very accurate satellite-based land cover maps that have been validated by humans for South Florida. And in this study, we really just focused on sugarcane burning to differentiate the emissions, and we excluded those that are from controlled burning or wildland sources because you don't want to do the overlap, right? It can be hard, as we know, in the US to prevent a lot of the risk from pollutants from wildland fire, but prescribed burning and agricultural systems are systems where we do have control over those pollutants. So yes, we did do that, and we did detail that in the report, that we used the right land use and fuels data sets, as well as within the NEI itself, which relies on land use and differentiation of fuels, that we only look at agricultural open burning, not other types of fire.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that answer. And thank you again, Dr. McCarty, for sharing with us today. We're going to wrap up today's virtual press conference. To the media and journalists, the actual report is going to be released. I think the link may even come in the chat. One didn't know if Patrick wanted to give some closing remarks as far as what to expect with the reports and other information as it relates to today's discussion.
No, I think we should just close things up from here. I'll share my email address within the chat, and we will be sharing a post-event press release with a recording of the video and a link to the full report, hopefully within the next hour. So stay tuned, and thank you everybody for showing up.
Thank you again, Dr. McCarty. Thank you for everyone for joining us, and you guys have a blessed day.
Thank you.